Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Sim Sundays podcast. I'm joined this week by George.
Hello. How you doing,
And
Tom?
sadly, not random call sign this week. He is building a kitchen, and he was going to try and get around it and see if there was a quiet 5 minutes, but he's been dealing with noise complaints from the neighbours today. So sadly, he will not be with us. How has your week been, sir?
It's been pretty good, thanks, Tom. Yeah, it's not bad. It's been all quiet on the Western Front. It's been a lot of activity, I think, around the league racing side of things on social media, but I'm sure we'll probably get around to that very, very soon. But it's been good, really enjoyable. And you?
Yeah, I think you saying all quiet on the Western Front is rare. I think there's very little about what you do and your lifestyle that's quiet. Whether
I'm not a very quiet person. I'm not quiet.
No. Well, so we're going to jump straight into some news then from this week. So obviously we had SFE last weekend, so Sim Formula Europe. So the second of two, I guess, sim racing expos in Europe. By all accounts, it was a successful event. I watched some of the footage of it. It looked really good. It looked really busy. And there were a lot of manufacturers there. Some manufacturers who weren't at the Sim Racing Expo as well, which is nice to see. A bit of variety there, so it's not just a carbon copy of the Sim Racing Expo.
Yeah.
So I last week brought SFE up because I was kind of excited by what is going on with Track Racer. Now, Track Racer, obviously, old friend of the show. I've actually been messaging Matt Sten, CEO, founder of Track Racer. He's going to be coming on the show next week, which is very exciting.
Cool.
Not sure when the episode will come out, but I was chatting to him a little bit about his products, etc. And in our pre-show show last week, I wondered whether or not people would be able to actually try the hardware. So the wheelbases, wheels, handbrakes, pedals, etc. And so I've been reading Tom Harrison Lord's article on it, and he could try it. It was a pre-production version. It was the power was turned down, and it was used in a rally game. But he said it was detailed, but is reserving judgment. So I think it was more of a statement piece, kind of, here we are, we're coming for this market. We have stuff that is working enough for us to bring it to SFE, but we're not quite ready for production yet. Which
too early to tell.
It's fair enough. These things take time.
Bit too early to tell then. Reserving judgment in terms of the quality of the equipment at this stage.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, we don't know the price point yet, so we don't know if they're going for a SimuCube Asetek market or if they're coming a bit lower down towards Fanatec or Moser, or down to kind of, to compete with Thrustmaster. And even if you'll compete with Fanatec, is it the CSL DD or is it the DD Plus or the DD1? I mean, the price, the market is so saturated now that you have basically options at every price level interval of £100 all the way up to kind of £2,000, right? So, interesting. They're obviously making good progress. Claim that the full launch of the production versions will be 2024. That's kind of exciting. I like Track Racer. I like their rigs. So yeah, excited to see what they bring out. They showed off some of their firmware, and in the firmware, there was one little thing that I noticed, which was kind of interesting, which was on that you can just about see down the side menu. It's a little bit blurry in one of the pictures, but you can see an icon that says haptics, which is interesting. So it feels like they're going to be launching a pretty full-featured range, a full-featured ecosystem. So you could get your pedals, your wheelbase, your wheel, your cockpit, your monitor mounts, and if you're into haptics, I guess you can also get your haptics as well. And whether or not that's the kind of base shaker alternative, or whether that's the sort of in-seat haptic pads that we've been seeing recently.
So it's quite a well-rounded,
but didn't get
kind of product.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I didn't get to SFE, but obviously the coverage of it was great. I really enjoyed watching Lawrence de Souza's coverage of it. As always, the guy is a very entertaining man. So that's my Track Racer news. The other news I wanted to bring up, which I think is kind of significant, is Turtle Beach. Now, I think last week we discussed Cooler Master. Cooler Master entered the sim racing market. They came in with quite a premium cockpit,
I think
which is great.
me and Ricardo had some reservations, didn't we? In a sense that we were a bit concerned that they were entering a market that might be too oversaturated, and there's too many of them. I think Ricardo came out with that, said, "Yeah, there's just too many," which I do kind of agree with. But
Yeah.
I mean, there are quite a number of sim racing, suppliers now in the stage, and I hope, obviously, it's very difficult nowadays to find a niche. I think in many ways, but if you can find one, then brilliant.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see what benefits the sim racing market realizes from mainstream gaming brands entering into sim racing, right? So Cooler Master has a general gaming following, Turtle Beach has a general gaming following, and now they're releasing sim racing hardware. How many of their kind of generalist gamers might be tempted to be converted across to sim racing? That's kind of what I'm seeing. The Turtle Beach Velocity One race set comes with it looks like the pedal set looks like, if you've ever seen the Thrustmaster TLCMs, looks almost identical to that.
Used to have one of those.
Honestly, some of the best pedals I've ever had, and we use Hoist and Belt in the office now, and I think the TLCMs were a very, very close match.
In fact,
great pedals, especially with a couple of mods. I go on.
Here they are.
Nice. Yeah, damn. And I like that they were ready. They were like unplugged, ready to be picked up and shown to the camera.
Yeah, that's advertising. We get paid for that, right?
Yeah. Beautiful. Yeah. I'll send the invoice to Thrustmaster after the show. The TLCMs, I remember watching a YouTube video about how you can put like skateboard, I'm gonna call them chocks.
Yeah.
I don't know, I wasn't a skater as a kid, right? I don't know, but basically big old rubber things to put in between your springs, etc., to mod it to make it really firm. And you could buy the different types of skateboard chocks, would give you different resistances, and it was absolutely fantastic. However, the Turtle Beach offering is really interesting, right? Because this is different, right? I haven't seen this before. The wheel looks lovely. It's got kind of like a perforated leather grip. It's got a few kind of almost joystick style, Logitech style, Thrustmaster style controls in the bottom corners, but then in the top corners, you've got what looks similar to the SimuCube Taco wheel rim button box Taco, which is a beautiful wheel. So they've kind of gone a bit of both. You've got the kind of console style interface mixed with a more premium end button box makeup. But what's really interesting about it is it's connected to the wheelbase, and the wheelbase looks like nothing else we've ever seen before. It looks like if you've ever used the TSPC or the T300, where you have that almost kind of dashboard in-car console shape, as opposed to the kind of cylindrical shape that you would see in SimuCube, Acetec,
or
Fanatec, etc. But built into that is a LCD or LED, I'm guessing, dashboard, and attached to it is another button box. It's kind of clever.
Yeah, it is different. I mean, I'll give them that. I mean, what really struck me about, I think, obviously, leading back to the Turtle Bay is only off the basic, knowledge that we obviously discussed prior to the show, and obviously just checking them out online. Hugely invested in the flight sim side of things, and we do see a lot of stuff carry over in the flight sim, like a lot of drivers themselves that are esports drivers or should we say competitive sim racing drivers are also big flight sim fans as well. For instance, the likes of Tomek Paradzic, I know, does it regularly. You're one as well, Dirk Chocolate. So there is some synergy there, and
Gamer muscle.
Gamer muscle. I mean, generally it's quite in depth, equipment and machinery. So you never know. They could be a well received manufacturer now joining the sim racing scene. It could be a huge positive, actually.
Yeah. I mean, you look at what's on offer here, and it's actually incredible the amount of features on, and for the price point here in the UK, £630 to pre-order. Now that's incredible for a force feedback motor with an LCD screen with that many options on your button box, inside your wheel rim, and then an additional button box next, which has got kill switches and some rotary dials. And it's Xbox compatible and it's PC compatible. It's really impressive. And what's interesting is it's force feedback. They've gone for quality, right? It's not a belt driven setup like the old T150s and Logitech G29s, etc. But it does look like it's designed to be mounted to a desk as opposed to a cockpit. So it's kind of bridging that gap. It's kind of, this is the premium offering for those who are getting into it, who don't have the space, right?
Yeah, that's interesting.
So very exciting, and it'll be interesting to see, how many general gamers, how many Turtle Beach followers kind of come across to our world of sim racing. Now let's talk about the world of league racing, George. What's been happening?
Well, I mean, it's been a fun time in PSGL. We had a great race last time, obviously alluding to our run at Imola. Though the race probably wasn't quite as action packed as we did have a brief discussion about this in our last show, but it wasn't perhaps as action packed as Portimao. But Thomas Ronha, again, back to his best. But obviously heading in, as we're recording this at this point, we have got PSGL tonight as well on the Wednesday, so we are looking forward to that. So we're going back into Silverstone. Obviously, the results you'll find out post tonight. Obviously, it would have finished by the time we head to Sunday. But yeah, it's really good. A lot of activity now. Obviously, with still no updates on the F1 esports side, it's all gone quiet. A lot of the fans now are tuning back into PSGL and to WR as well as many other things, which is fantastic. A lot of the news though flickering around is back on the cheating scandals again. There's lots.
Yes, I saw your tweet actually.
Yeah. Which is a little concerning, and obviously it's not something we like to see, because obviously it breaches the integrity of the sport. But I know that Race Clutch have come out with a statement in only the last 10 minutes or so, or half an hour, to basically address the accusations against their drivers in terms of cheating, or and using, should we say, systems to enhance their performance. And they have vehemently denied that it is the case, and they've done a thorough investigation on it. One thing that was brought to the attention of many was the departure of Bart van der Kasteel, one of their top managers, and it was cited that he was sharing sensitive information that was Race Clutch information to other teams, even though the general consensus is that he has done no such thing. So there's a little bit of a crazy situation happening at Race Clutch right now, and quite controversial. But as to what is really going on behind the scenes, I don't think we can truthfully 100% understand it until we get something concrete.
Yeah, interesting. Yeah, I remember we had Robin Bondon on the show probably over a year ago now from Race Clutch, and those guys love what they're doing. The kind of the DNA of that group is just racing fanatics. So you always assume the best in people. It is a shame when this kind of drama takes over, and it's almost like the F1 esports not happening has left this vacuum of interest, which is being filled with a bit of drama, which this has been the problem. Enjoy seeing.
Yeah, this has been the problem over the last couple of years or so. I think nowadays there seems to be greater fascination and attention brought to the controversies of the scene, as opposed to what should be great about the scene, which is the racing itself. And it seems that we're kind of detracting away from the racing and focusing on the horrible narrative, which we don't really want to be doing. But unfortunately, it's one of those things that can't be avoided, because it's, you can't just allow, if there is if a driver is cheating, you just can't let it happen. It breaches everything that competition is and always should be, if you get me.
Yeah, no, 100%. It kind of echoes a little bit the real world of Formula One, and as soon as the entertainment overtakes, excuse the pun, the racing, then the kind of the loudest narrative in the sport becomes less about the sport and more about the drama. So perhaps this is just a symptom of sim racing's success. But I would like to see some more high-level competition coming back to kind of quell the need a little bit for this sort of self-created drama. The drama you want to see is the drama on the track, right?
Absolutely.
Not on Twitter.
I mean, we
Well,
had
George,
I just want to say we had some of that as well with Ron Har and Jarno historically. So I mean, it was nice to see.
of course.
It was nice to see that competitive element, and I wish we would return to that instance. You're absolutely right.
Yeah, totally agree. So, George, we're going to be interviewing Annie Avery, who is a fantastic racing streamer. She does a lot of kind of behind the scenes in the real world, as well as her own iRacing streams. So I'm looking forward to chatting to her. So as is convention, what is your question for Annie?
Well, I had the opportunity of watching one of her videos that she had on YouTube concerning a home rig that she was racing in with a trip around the Nordschleife, and they were driving around the Nordschleife in this homemade motion rig. What I want to know is, first of all, which track is Annie's favourite, first of all, that she has raced on? And B, what would be her chosen car to race around said track?
Great. Fantastic question. Thank you, George, and we'll see you next week.
Thank you very much, Tom. See you then.
Annie, hi. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
No, anytime. So for those listening on Spotify, you are in an incredible setup right now. As sim racers, we all have our setups. Whether you stream or not, every sim racer is very proud of their setups. And one thing that I always look at is the seat that you're in. Now, yours looks like it's made of carbon fiber, right? So it looks like a really cool seat, like a really high spec seat. But I always wonder, like, given that, the seat isn't going around the track physically, does it need to be carbon fiber? But it looks so freaking cool.
It does look amazing, right? And I get a lot of comments about this seat. And I think because it's actually designed to be in a race car, it would be so beneficial, right? Carbon fiber is so light. But in a sim racing setup, I don't know if it's necessary as such. And it looks glamorous from up here, but down here you can see all like my cushions and pillows to try and make it a little bit comfier. But yeah, I love it. It's really immersive as well. Like you really feel like you're really in like a car when you're using it. And I guess it's good practice for if I ever do go in a car. But yeah, doing long stints and endurance races and long streams in it is you kind of have to walk around for about an hour after.
Yeah, I bet. So I recently bought the Sparco Grid Q, and it's actually meant for gaming, right? But it's actually a lot harder than some of the real race car seats that I've been in. I'm like, why? Like, come on, what? So I bought like this rally seat insert that's like 6 inches thick, and it's so squidgy and lovely. It's just a nice place to sit, even if you're not racing. But anyway, I've gone massively off topic. Congratulations on getting Twitch partner.
Thank you. Yeah, exciting. I've been streaming for about 3 years now, and I never thought I would get anywhere near Twitch partner. So yeah, it was crazy getting that email.
Yeah, that is very cool. I mean, there's so many people who on Twitch will stream to 2 or 3 people day after day after day. There's a really good friend of mine who lives up in Newcastle where I live, who streams Call of Duty, and he's been streaming I think for maybe 3 or 4 years. And he streams to usually no one, but he's religious with it, absolutely religious, has a real pride in his setup, makes these incredible videos. And you kind of realize that there's an element of doing it for the love of the craft, as well as the community and the audience that you garner, right?
Definitely. I think like that's the base of what you need as well. And it's just like finding an audience. Once you've got that audience and you've already got that commitment, like it's all going to blow up from there, it's just so hard to start streaming, especially when there's so many streamers in oversaturated subjects as well, like Call of Duty, for example, you go in and you've got 0 or 1 viewers, you're right at the bottom of the list. And like for someone to find you, it's going to take forever to scroll through, but
okay, so how did we get here, right? So I see what you're doing on your socials and on your streams, and I love your vlogging style, which I want to get to later because that's a very unique style in the sim racing space. It's really, really cool. But let's go all the way back to the beginning. Now, as far back as I can get on the internet without being creepy researching is ex-maths teacher, right? So in your YouTube description, it's ex-maths teacher. So how do you go from being a maths teacher to sim racing streamer, YouTuber, Twitch partner?
So my career started when I was 16 and I went straight into education and I did apprenticeships and I did my degree. I did maths teaching. I was straight into that and I loved it. I loved it so much. And when I went to uni, I I went in with so much enthusiasm for teaching, and honestly, uni just killed it. It began, it became this thing that was more. It wasn't about teaching. It was more about
Mm,
getting making Ofsted happy. It wasn't about like the love of teaching and finding creative ways to teach, and it was really disheartening, honestly. So the environment of teaching as well was amazing 10 years ago. It was amazing.
mm,
It was so happy and enthusiastic. And then it just became this thing of like having to grind for policies and procedures constantly. And
yeah.
whilst at uni, I was so whilst at uni, I started watching Twitch streams. I'd never watched any kind of Twitch streams before. I'd never watched really any gaming content before that. I was kind of just like standard like Netflix and films.
Nice.
And then whilst at uni, I started watching Twitch streams and I found there was communities within these live
Mm,
streams. I had no idea that was even a thing, really. And my friends were saying, "Oh yeah, you should start streaming. You should do that." And I was like, "Well, I don't know. I'm a bit nervous. Like, I wouldn't know what to stream or anything. Like, I just play Dead by Daylight and horror games." And they were like,
nice.
"Do that."
Nice.
So just as like a hobby, I started streaming. I was doing horror related streams and found a little tiny community. And it starts off small, right? It starts off, you're streaming to 2 people, starting to 3, and then suddenly you have 5, and that's huge in the beginning.
Yeah.
You're like, oh my god, I got 5 people watching me. And I was saying this last night, I was saying like it's somehow more intimate when you have 2 or 3 people watching you.
Mm,
And then I started streaming way more consistently, and it got to the point where after I'd finished uni, I had to make a choice. I was like, okay, do I go back into teaching, and do I go back into maths specialism because that's what I did, or do I try and pursue streaming? And I did, and luckily it's worked out.
So,
Um,
so when you made that decision, right? So, I find that story fascinating. A number of reasons. So my older sister Hannah, she studied drama. So before she was in the theatre, and then she went to study drama teaching. So she wanted to be a drama teacher, and she absolutely loved the course. And then when she got to teaching, it sucked all the fun out of it. Which how like surely teaching is about kind of, as well as imparting knowledge and fact and wisdom, it's all about imparting passion, right? Because if those kids don't come away passionate about the subject, well, then what was the point? Because they're not going to do it again, right? So it's such a shame that there's so much bureaucracy and process and hurdles to overcome in teaching, that those who are most passionate about a subject, i.e. those people who are willing to be teachers of that subject to like a new generation like coming up, like they get totally ruined by teaching.
yeah, definitely. I agree. I was so enthusiastic. I loved the thing with teaching is there's just so much paperwork. There's so much
Mm,
paperwork, and you have to be so careful with every single thing you do, and it just kind of grinds you down and down and down until what's the point of putting all
mm.
this effort in? And it's really sad that it gets to that point because it should never get to that point. If you're ever at the
Well, we
point where
need
you don't want
teachers,
to put,
right?
yeah,
We
if you
don't have,
don't
we
want to
don't
put
have
the
a
effort into
choice. We
teaching,
need teachers.
yeah, definitely. And it's kind of from my experience in the schools that I've been in, you have the teachers who have been there forever. They've been there 30, 40 years, and
Mm,
they're not exactly what we need right now a lot of the time. We need like the teachers who come in there fresh and they're bringing in all the
mm,
new ideas rather than the teachers who are doing like, it's called rote learning as such, when you just do like, okay, let's read off the board and we're going to recite and recite and recite and we're going to make everyone happy and we're going to pass these exams. But that's not exactly a lot of the time how you inspire people to actually enjoy subjects.
mm.
And it's sad because a lot of the time it can only take like one tiny event for you to realize that you love something. And
Yeah.
for example, I remember doing like a science lesson when I was in year 3 or 4 and being like, oh my god, science is amazing, this is amazing. And it
The
carries
burn
you.
stuff.
Yeah, like it's physically doing stuff makes a massive difference in your remembering everything. So yeah.
So when you were teaching, right? did you, and I don't know which age you're teaching at, that you were teaching at, right? But did you ever worry about the people that you were teaching finding your stream?
I genuinely, yes. So I never had my full name as my stream. I had like a alter ego as such. It was
What was your alter ego?
I was like Dizzy was my name.
Okay.
Because I just did not want my name anywhere. And you actually can't, it's kind of frowned upon to have an online presence as a teacher. You have to have everything locked down. All your social media is like locked and private, which there's reason for it.
Yeah, it makes sense.
But it is restrictive if you want to have another outlet for creativity, or even I've seen a lot of teachers do educational YouTube videos and still get in trouble for it. So it's kind of we're in a weird place for social media.
Okay, so yeah, totally get that. I mean, being a teacher generally must be an absolute minefield in terms of getting in trouble for anything, basically. I have a huge respect for I did a bit of teaching. My last couple of years in the military, I was teaching like phase 1 and phase 2, like basic training to the officers coming through, and that was that was a bit different. But even then, like, gosh, the responsibility, the faff of having to record it. Anyway, we digress. So, horror games. Why the hell do you like horror games? Horror games are horrible.
I grew up on horror games. I grew up on horror films and horror games, and I loved. So what I did in the beginning is I did first time playthroughs of horror games because I loved the genuine reaction of, it sounds weird, but being scared. And I like the community around horror games because a lot of the time they've all played the game, right? So they're anticipating. They know what's around the corner, but you don't.
Interesting. So they're almost getting to see like you know in the olden days, fucking hell. You know when you have like a DVD and then they'll have extras, and then some of the extras will be like somebody watching along with the DVD. It's basically like a modern day watch along. I can't believe I called that the olden days DVD.
DVD extras. Oh my goodness.
It's kind of that same concept, right?
Yeah, definitely. But it actually works the opposite way, because after I'd finish a horror game, I'd go and watch other streamers doing it, and I was like, "Oh, this bit, they're gonna love this bit. It's gonna be so good. I can't wait to see like their reaction to it." So it's fun doing first time playthroughs.
So the first couple of streams you did, right? Presumably, like everybody, you have to go through that process of streaming to no one, or did you not? Did you manage to somehow skip that?
So I semi-skipped it, well, like a tiny bit in comparison to, like, I know a lot of people go and they do 0 viewers and maybe 1 viewer, and then they drop out and that kind of thing. What I did in the beginning was I built a genuine friendship community within Twitch. I was consistently in other people's streams. I was consistently, and it just became this thing of like, we built friendships within Twitch. And after they were like, "Oh, you should stream," I was like, "Okay, well, I'm a bit nervous. I'm gonna stream. Okay, I'm gonna stream on Wednesday at 2:00." And then slowly, like, they'd come and more and more, even if it's just 1 or 2 more, would come every week or every month, etc. It just slowly built up. And I feel like after you're above a certain bracket of viewers, even if that bracket is literally 10, 15, you're so much more visible to other people. In the grid.
So in terms of the community itself, you said it's intimate, right? So there's a couple of streamers that I watch, and it does feel like you see the same people in the chat every time. There's one streamer that I watch is actually the Grid Finders tech lead's wife. She streams CS:GO. Channel is called So Sharky, and she goes on there, and there's usually, I mean, when I first started watching it was like 8 to 12, but now it's usually 25 to kind of 40 or 50, and I'm in her Discord, and those people who have met through Sophie's channel are genuine friends. On Discord, they will, at the weekends, when she's not streaming, they will share pictures of what they're up to at the weekend, or them with their kids, or I'm out at this fair, or there's this guy who does like reenactments, and he'll be like, I'm dressed up as this whatever tank man from the war or whatever. I've probably done him a huge disservice there with that terrible explanation, but it's really cool how they become genuine friends. So is that the sort of thing that you managed to create and enjoy at the beginning?
Yeah, definitely. 2022, I think it was. I went to TwitchCon and I met up with
Wow.
a load of my Twitch friends as well. And for example, one of my first, actually, I think my first moderator, he's getting married now to someone that he met on Twitch.
No
And
way.
yeah, and he's
That's so
moving
cool.
from America to England, and then they're getting married. And I'm gonna go to their wedding, and I can't wait. It's gonna be amazing. So
That
yeah,
is bonkers.
you
If
meet
they haven't already
amazing
thought,
people.
that's incredible. If they haven't already thought about this, the table names need to be the Twitch usernames.
Oh, that would be so cute. Maybe
That
they
would
can.
be so cute.
I actually, one of my friends live streamed their wedding as well. So that
On
was
Twitch.
live streamed it on Twitch. Yeah.
Imagine the gifted subs, man.
It was really cute actually because we were all on Discord and we were like, "Oh, are we getting ready for the wedding?" We all like had a little section in the Discord and all the girls we were getting ready for the wedding to watch this wedding together. But it was so cute and like they've got all the clips and they've got all the chat still that they can read through it. And this is probably 3 years ago now. So yeah, it's amazing what
That's magic.
you can do online.
Yeah, that's so cool. I feel I speak to a lot of streamers, but who've got hundreds of thousands of followers. But I don't know, something about that story has inspired me to maybe do it again. That's so nice. Okay, anyway, let's move on. So obviously, it's not horror all the time or at all anymore. We've moved on to a very distinctive but different niche, but with your own spin on it. So continue the story.
Well, I would say iRacing is semi-horror, especially in rookies. But basically, yeah, I changed it up really, really slowly. I did a few like Euro stream simulators. I did Euro Truck even. I did Euro Truck Simulator.
Yeah.
I did Crazy Taxi, stuff like that. Stuff that's not simulators as such. They're like more games.
The gateway
And
drug.
then yeah, exactly. And then I got a set of Corsa and my boyfriend was teaching me how to drift and I was like, oh, it'd be so fun if I could drift on stream. That'd be amazing. And then it kind of turned into I for some reason was driving in the Nürburgring on F1 cars. I don't know how it happened. I just thought it was a good idea and then ended up
to another.
and then I was a Mango driving around on the Nürburgring. I just kind of went down this weird mod route of I'm on the Nürburgring driving whatever I can.
A Mango.
A Mango, yeah.
How did the Mango handle?
There's also Baths you can drive. The Mango was awful. It was awful.
Really?
Yeah.
Lots of
Yeah.
understeer.
Yeah.
Ride height was too low.
Yeah. So the Bath was just as bad as well. But when I got through the Assetto Corsa mods, everyone was saying, oh, you should do iRacing. And iRacing to me was terrifying. I genuinely was so scared of iRacing. I don't know why. The concept of I'm kind of goofing around, I'm driving around the Nürburgring and whatever I want, to then racing. And racecraft is so... It was something I was so for. I had no idea about racecraft at all. And the thought of it terrified me. And for so long, I just drove by myself around the tracks. I then did like AI races and...
Well, this I'm sorry, but this is the right way to do it. This feels like what a lot of people ought to do, rather than download iRacing and 20 minutes later they're in their first Mazda Rookies race and it's absolute carnage. Like going through that process of being, well, I need to practice and then I need to practice racecraft. That feels like a really sensible way to approach it.
Yeah, I mean I agree, but I was streaming every practice I did. I didn't practice at all off stream. So from the beginning I started iRacing, it was all on stream and it was a nightmare in the beginning. It was awful. I murdered so many people on those tracks. It was so bad. But it's been really, really nice. Like as well, I think for my community to like see the growth of and it's so genuine of I have no idea what I'm doing. Please help me. So many people have come into my stream and they're like, oh yeah, okay, so this is the maths behind it. This is, if you're going too fast and you're trying to turn your car while you're accelerating, that's not going to work because of this. It's been so fun learning like this sounds really nerdy, but almost like the maths behind
Yeah.
sim racing.
Well, it's one of the few gaming genres that I guess does have a genuine relationship with math because it's physics based, right?
Yeah, definitely.
That's interesting. And I'm really glad that you seem to have had a positive experience of people coming into the stream to help rather than, you know, do you know what I'm thinking, right? This is I had this conversation with a friend recently about the cringiness of you're ever in the gym and you see a guy come up to a girl in the gym and be like, oh, you're actually doing that wrong. You should do it like this. I'm like, oh, leave that the hell alone. Like,
Yeah.
this is what she doesn't need. But it sounds like you've had the opposite experience of people kind of offering solicited help. Maybe not exclusively.
For the most part, it has been amazing. I would say 90% the advice I've got has been so helpful. And a lot of the time I'll put in my title, I'm like, oh yeah, like I appreciate all the tips you're going to give me. Like, honestly, I find them really, really great ways to learn. But you do get a lot, from what I've noticed, is a lot of the people who stream iRacing are amazing. Some of them are esports guys. They're amazing at sim racing. It's, to me, a lot rarer to find someone who is like a genuine rookie and genuinely learning. And it's kind of daunting as a streamer, honestly, because you're like, okay, I'm going in and I have so many viewers and they're going to be watching me just crash into the barrier and crash into trees, and it's semi like embarrassing, you know, learning in front of all these people. But you kind of have to remember that every single person has learned. You know, everyone has gone through this process of trying to work out how far she can take that corner. And I think the more exposure there is to people learning, the better, because I can imagine being really worried, wanting to go into sim racing and just seeing all these people who are amazing at it and they got 4 or 5 KI rating, and you're just, oh, why can't I do that? You know, there's no one at different levels really. But yeah, I've had a lot of people message me and saying that they've like started iRacing because, you know, they've seen that it's not all so scary. It's fun, you know. It's meant to be a hobby at the end of the day. So
yeah, well, that's such a good point, because sim racers, we are guilty of taking it too seriously a lot of the time. And you're right, it's a game, right? I know it was a simulation, but like, yeah, I know, I said the E word. It's because, but you know, it's meant that you do it primarily for fun. You do it for the challenge, you do it for the reward. But if you're new to sim racing and you just find it on Twitch, you find it on YouTube, and you see all these overlays and you see people changing up their aero and their tire pressures, and they're talking about tire temps as they're driving, and you're like, well, this isn't Gran Turismo 2 anymore. This is like, what the hell? This has moved on so much. So it's nice that there are channels starting now where it's a bit of kind of like a gateway in. You know, you can watch somebody who's going along the same journey that you hope to go on, who aren't too far ahead of you, and then progress with them. I guess the tricky thing with iRacing is that all of your races are timed, right? And I remember about 2 years ago, I did a bit of streaming, and I did F1 2019, I guess, or 2020, and I did iRacing, and it was my Mazda rookie season. And I remember my first iRacing Mazda race that I streamed, and I got crashed out, first corner, into the barrier, 4 minutes of repairs, and I was like, well, what do I do on stream now? What do I just sit here? Or do I quit out of the race? But if I quit out of the race, do I wait for the next one that's in an hour's time, or do I practice? But there's no other, like, and you're like, oh, does this work as a streaming method? Like, does it?
It is difficult, actually, especially when you're just committed to one type of race. Like I did that a few weeks ago. I was doing Mazda rookies, and obviously you're going to get crashed out. Everyone gets crashed out in the beginning. Absolutely. I've never been in a rookie race where I haven't seen absolute destruction almost consistently at T1. But yeah, it is hard. It's hard to stream. And the thing is, especially when you're learning, a lot of what you should be doing really is concentrating fully on what you're doing, but not talking and not looking at another monitor.
Yeah, that's such a good point. Like talking. So sometimes if I'm practicing, I'll be on Discord and I'll be talking to people whilst I'm practicing. And I find that hard enough. I could be having just a conversation just about my day, right? And as I'm getting to like a complex series of corners or whatever, I'll just stop talking because I just can't do both. And then you see some people like, Dave Cam, for example, is a great iRacing streamer who can just chat away as he's going around like, door to door with other cars. And I don't know how you have that additional like RAM in your head.
It's amazing. Yeah.
It is crazy.
Yeah.
Okay, so I want to talk about some of your vlogs, because you have the Twitch streams and the YouTube vlogs, and it feels to me as if that's a conscious decision. It's like Twitch for live, YouTube for on-demand content, and you've got a great kind of crossover between sim racing, motorsport, car culture, and then like almost like a classic YouTube style vlog, like, from kind of that, I don't know, that kind of like 2012, 2013 vlogging style, but works so well in with kind of like your day-to-day life, which is bonkers.
It is kind of crazy, not gonna lie. Well, the thing is, like, I love classic vlogs. Like, that's like kind of what I watched before was get ready with me. I'm gonna go and do this food shop thing. I don't know why I used to watch that kind of thing. But yeah, classic vlogs are. I just love them. I don't want them to die out. I'm bringing it back. Like
Nice.
So yeah, I love doing that. I realize that I go to a lot of events and I do a lot of things in real life that are hard to access for a lot of people. I spent a lot of the summer at the Nürburgring, and before last summer I had never even dreamt that I'd be able to go there. So I just thought, why not? I can blog it. It'll be so fun. And it's kind of honestly not to grow followers. It's more so I have something to look back at, and it's almost like a little diary of things we've done. And I'm just bringing along my community to be like, look, I did this weekend. Like, So yeah, I mean, Twitch has always been somewhere where I've just live streamed a lot for the community. And then YouTube is something I would like to go into more in the future. And it's kind of just a little gateway, I guess, my vlogs into it. So
Yeah, it is really interesting because it's you're kind of behind the scenes in a way. It's it's really interesting to get a glimpse into that world that most of your fans are gonna absolutely adore, that kind of access to everything that you're getting to see and the places that you get to walk. And it's something that I noticed is that you come across in your videos as like a proper car person. People who identify as I'm a car guy, I'm a car girl.
I am
like,
a car,
love
yeah.
fucking cars. When did that start?
I've always been into cars. My whole life I've been into cars. So there's been different phases of my car, let's say, journey.
Let's go through them all.
So back when I first learned to drive, I was super into like the modified car scene. I was super into modified car. I had my first car was a Mark II Golf GTI, and
Nice.
I loved it so much. And then I had a modified really low Ibiza, and I just went kind of down that route of
Ibiza
cars. Yeah. Yeah.
Like a bubbly one, right? Before they did the bodywork where it was all angular, like the proper bubble of a car.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was amazing. So for a really long time I was just into like a lot of it was aesthetic, honestly, because that's kind of all I could afford. I couldn't afford, and insurance wise I couldn't afford to be doing anything like turbos, etc. So I've always had that interest of cars. I mean, like one of my core memories growing up was Crazy Taxi. I was obsessed with that game as a kid.
What a game. What a game.
Amazing, right?
Handbrake turns you can pull off in that game.
There's a new one coming out like soon, in like 2 months. There's a new one. Yeah, I know. It's multiplayer.
Right. Is it going to be compatible with my wheel? That's
I think they actually are bringing it out on wheel. I'm so excited.
I mean, imagine a stream content that is just incredible. Just driving a taxi and streaming. That sounds like so much fun. That sounds like the most kind of zened out, peaceful, enjoyable stream you could imagine.
Yeah, definitely. So it kind of started from there. It started being, modified cars, etc. But to me, modifying cars for road use and racing cars on a track are two different ball games. They are so different. And I didn't really have any access to anything to do with racing, 12 years ago. I didn't watch much content. I don't know if there was much content on YouTube for racing. I didn't really watch much of it. But for the last couple of years, I've been into racing. And I mean, going back to my childhood, obviously F1 was massive. I remember sat cross-legged in front of the TV as a child watching Schumacher, and that was like life-changing.
So you as a young child, you were super into racing.
Yeah, well, I was into F1. I didn't really.
Okay, F1, yeah.
My uncle was super into F1, and at first you kind of like, I remember being like, oh god, it's on for so long, being like obviously like 5 years old, wow, it's on for ages. But then it kind of became this like bonding experience of like, I would go around, I'd sit with my uncle and be watching the F1, and he loved Schumacher, so then I loved Schumacher, and then slowly, like, maybe he wasn't there one time, so then I was watching it by myself, and then it just became this big old thing of core enjoyment of F1,
So has that translated into any F1 gaming? Have you raced the games?
I haven't done any of the games. I have not played any of the games at all. I have heard mixed responses, let's say.
Yes.
I know.
No, go on.
I know a lot of people are super into them, and actually, if I'm honest, didn't really know much about them until about 2 years ago. So I would really like to play this year's version though. It looked interesting.
It's interesting and delicately handled, that answer there, Annie. It's so F1 was kind of my rebirth into the sim racing world, right? So my birth into the sim racing world, my rebirth into like racing games. So I used to love my first games. I think the first game I can remember, right, is Tokka 2. Now I know a lot of people on PlayStation, right? It was Tokka 2. It was such a great game, touring cars. And I know a lot of people in the sim racing world. I bet the older the game you can recite as your first sim racing game, like the higher the rank you are in that group of people that you're talking to, right? But Tokka 2 is the only one I can remember. I'm sure we had some on Sega, but I don't know what they were called. I don't remember. I was like 6. But anyway, Tokka 2 was great. I love Tokka 2. And then I used to play the F1 games in like 2011, 2012, 2013. And then I went to sea for like a bazillion years. So I didn't play for ages. And then I came back and it was F1 2020 that like re-sparked my love for racing games. It's why I bought my first rig and blah blah blah. So a real emotional connection to the F1 games, and I love 20, love 21. 22 was a bit of a, and now it seems to have like dropped off a bit of a cliff. But maybe this year, after EA's had it for a whole year, blah 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 blah, all this stuff that me, Ricardo, and George talk about at the beginning of these episodes when we're talking about game updates, because we're proper nerds, are excited for. So yes, I agree. You should try it. I think you would love it. I don't think you need to try 23. I think you could try 2020, 21. They're all great, and it's the being inside the cockpit. It's a faster experience. It's a real racing experience as opposed to a driving experience, if that makes sense. Like the driving is easier. The racing, there's more to it because you have ERS and DRS. If you go back far enough, you've got fuel management. And anyway, so I freaking love it. I'm going to stop there.
Wow.
Okay, so Annie, what's next? Where is this journey taking you?
Honestly, I'm just kind of going with the flow. I'm just going with the flow. I'm doing everything that I enjoy, and I'm just letting my genuine interests kind of guide the way,
Oh, nice.
So, I've been doing a lot of iRacing recently, but I kind of want to merge it back into Assetto Corsa, and I want to take cars onto tracks that I would never in my lifetime be able to do. So, for example, a couple of weeks ago was in a old school F1 car with no lights, in the dark, on the Nords with box trucks everywhere. And I kind of like that. I kind of like being able to do things that you would never be able to do, in real life.
So AI box trucks essentially as kind of almost like rolling roadblocks.
Yeah.
That's
In the
a lot.
dark with no headlights.
See, that's a great. Imagine an F1 car with headlights. That would be bonkers. Where would you put
Yeah.
them? Maybe like a big one on the nose, maybe.
Oh yeah,
I don't know.
maybe. Yeah.
Oh, yeah, that'd be a mod and a half. Actually, we should make that happen. F1 cars with lights. Like in Euro Truck Simulator where you've got like a bank of like 12 massive lights, but you put
Like a
that
big
on the
old
rear
grill.
wing. Yeah.
Oh, that's such a good idea.
Okay.
Something to
Anyway,
think about. Someone do it.
we can definitely make that happen. Okay, so guided by your interest, that's really interesting. And I guess also your schedule, it must be very kind of up and down, fragmented, like long periods away, then long periods at home. So it must be difficult to fall into a routine enough to be able to properly plan out, okay, this year my goal is X number of thousand people on YouTube, X number of thousand people on Twitch, and I want to make a focus on the vlogs or the modding or whatever it is, right? That must be quite tough given your schedule.
It definitely is. It definitely is. I mean, I am like a serial planner. I have everything in my diary up until like December this year of all the events I'm going to so far. And what I've been doing is like planning around the events I'm going to, content that might be interesting towards them, if that makes sense. So I think I'm going to be spending a lot of time again at the Nürburgring this year. So maybe I'm going to be doing more Assetto Corsa, Nürburgring, or that kind of thing, And yeah, it is hard because especially being a full-time streamer, the main thing with streaming is consistency. And I found that for the people I watch, I know, oh, well, this person's on, it's 7 p.m. They're on a weekday, And then when you're away for a week, that's a long time to take a break as a streamer. And you do lose a bit of your audience doing that. So yeah, but it's worth it, definitely, to be able to go to these events and be able to go to all these racetracks in real life and spend the day with them. It's kind of worth it, So,
and I guess because you've kind of properly adopted the vlog as part of your YouTube channel, you can keep it going, right? You're not going along to these events as a passenger. You're going along with your own goals and visions to kind of fulfill whilst you're there. You're not just standing around watching other people do stuff. You're like, well, what can I create here?
Yeah, definitely. And I think the nice thing about like what I do is I like to show how this might sound bad, but almost like how unglamorous it is, because you think it's amazing, right? You think like, oh, these race car drivers and they're doing this and they look so amazing when they're on the track and in the cars, but there's so much behind the scenes that you don't see. You don't see them getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning and they're so tired and they're traveling for 4 hours to get to this track and all that kind of thing before, So I think it's a nice little insight on like how they're real people too. And everyone around them, the mechanics, the people, just everything around, there's so much more than I ever knew was a thing. And yeah, it's nice to be able to not only just observe it, but make content on it as well. So yeah.
And do you do the editing of the videos yourself? Is that something that you're really passionate about, or is that something that you kind of outsource? Like, where does your interest lie when it comes to the kind of the final processes?
So I do all the editing. Being passionate about it is a different subject. I think. Yeah, no, I do it all. And I am self-taught, trying to learn how to do it, and it is something, obviously, my whole career has been in education. It has had nothing to do with editing videos or anything like that. So I've completely just had to learn it by myself, which everyone probably has. But it is, not something that came naturally to me. And it takes so long. It takes me so long to edit these videos. But it's kind of nice learning a new craft as such. And like, yeah, you get quicker every time, But yeah, it's semi-enjoyable editing. I much prefer recording it.
Okay, so Annie, I'm going to ask you some questions because we get sent questions by people that like listen to the podcast, and sometimes I forget until right at the end, and we've got 5-10 minutes left, and I don't want to rush these questions, right? So sponsors of the show, Assetech. They've sent in some questions for you. And the first one, oh my goodness, the first one, they're putting a lot of responsibility on your shoulders here. What do you believe needs to happen to make sim racing grow? It's a big
Wow.
question.
That is a big question.
Assetech coming in hard with the soul searchers.
I think, do you know what? I think more streamers. I think more streamers, more variety, and to be blunt, more games, more fun, like we want to bring a younger generation into this and grow it from there. I think streaming right now is so popular. It's so popular. Like a lot of people are doing it, and why not utilize that more, I
like
think
that.
yeah, I think that would be good. More simulators would be great. More games would be amazing to play. But yeah, I think just a variety of streamers, I think, doing different stuff. You're going to grow. For example, you could have someone who doesn't necessarily usually stream sim racing content at all, but they're going to give it a try, and they then bring their community that they've already established from, let's say, a Call of Duty community. They've come and they brought them over to sim racing, and then those people who would never have watched sim racing, they're watching and they're kind of like, oh, do you know what? Actually, this looks so fun. Maybe I'll try it as well. So I just think it would be amazing if sim racing was more accessible, and that's really sad because it's meant to be accessible. It's meant to be the accessible version of driving, right? It's meant to be the accessible version of racing, but it kind of is very inaccessible for a lot of people because it's so expensive. It's so expensive.
Yeah.
iRacing is expensive to maintain, as a membership alone, let alone having a rig and a wheel and pedals and everything. So yeah, I think the more popular it becomes, hopefully everything will become a little bit cheaper to buy, especially as a beginner, and yeah, then we can go from there.
Yeah, I like that. So blur the lines between sim racing and racing games.
Yeah,
I
that would be
like that.
amazing, wouldn't it?
Yeah, it's interesting. I mean, we were talking in the pre-show segment before this interview. If you're listening on Spotify, you'll listen to this about half an hour ago. We were talking about Turtle Beach have just entered the sim racing market, which is really interesting because it's like a generic gaming brand. And I don't mean generic brand. I mean mainstream gaming brand. Okay, they're known for headsets. They're also known for flight sims, and now they're entering the sim racing market, and they've come in at an incredibly aggressive price point, £630, but you get load cell pedals, direct drive wheel, the rim that attaches to it. You get a button box with that. You get an LCD screen on the direct drive, and you get an additional button box on the side, right? So it looks like the old ones that you'd have bought out the Argos catalog about 15 years ago, with all the buttons in the side bit to make it look like a car dash, except it's force feedback, direct drive quality stuff, which again, I'm excited by that, and time will tell how good it is. But the point is, we have the mainstream gaming brands moving in towards sim racing, which I think is going to bring it's going to bring a more casual group of people to sim racing who in themselves might then make it more accessible for others. So you might get some mainstream gaming streamers trying it out for the first time, but putting their kind of entertainment, this is for fun slant on it, as opposed to, right guys, we're doing an endurance race, it's 4 hours, we need to start thinking tire strategy, we want fuel strategy, we need to think driver swaps, it's just like, oh my god, if I was going to try this, I'd need to study for about a month before I could sit in the car. But yeah, that was a great answer. And
I was so excited to see the Turtle Beach announcement. I saw it this morning. It was amazing. I mean, we don't know much about the Newton meters and all the specs and stuff like that about it, but the price range for all of those things that come in the bundle was amazing. Like that could be a game changer for this year, next year, in 5 years' time. It could almost be that it's semi like everyone had an Xbox 360, in that era. Like it could be a lot of people have simulators, and that would just be amazing, because the more companies see that everyone's playing these racing games, that they're doing that, the more games we're going to get. And I just can't wait for it. I'm just excited.
I totally agree. And to put it into perspective, there isn't much difference between the price of that full force feedback setup with load cell pedals compared to the Thrustmaster TSPC, which is belt driven, old school wheel. That's still like 500 and something euros, right? And that's just for the wheel. No pedals included there. So it's fantastic. So sim racing, good. So next question. This one is a tough one, right? So I could try and make this more specific, but I'm not going to. I'm going to leave this up to you. You can interpret this question however you want. How would you describe the sim racing community?
Interesting.
What is the sim racing community? I mean, there's lots of them, or is it all of us?
It's actually really difficult because there's so many genres of sim racing enthusiasts. I would say it's 80% amazing, and they are so sweet and nice, and they just want you to enjoy it, and they thrive off you enjoying it as well, and they love the community around it. And then there's the other 20% that, for lack of a better word, are sweaty, like it's like they are so into it, and it's real, like for a lot of people this is as far they're not going to set foot in a real car, so this is as real as it's ever going to be, and it's serious to them. This is like their life and their dreams that they've been waiting to do. So I totally understand it and I get it, but it's nice to enjoy things as well. It's nice to have fun.
I saw your tweet recently where you had a comment from somebody that was basically having a go at you because you hadn't been doing it long enough. I'm like, sorry, I don't understand. I don't understand the guy's point, right? He's not happy because you're enjoying something. Maybe that's it. Maybe he's just not happy because you're enjoying it. It's like, you've got to go through the pain first. You've got to go through the years and years of grinding. You need to see your iRating plummet before you're allowed to enjoy any of this.
Yeah, I mean, definitely. And I actually get a few comments like that. They're like, oh, why are you streaming? Like, you're not good. I don't understand what it's like. I don't get it. I don't get how you're streaming and there's people watching you. And it's like, well, maybe because there's no other people doing it, maybe that's why, like, because everyone else is really good. And I think it's fun to watch people learn sometimes, Yeah,
and also, like, you don't have to watch a streamer because you're trying to pick up tips and you're trying to be like, right, I need to be in this elite community and we're going to all like worship this alien who is super, super fast, and we're going to cry when he comes second and it's always a he, and we're going to celebrate when it's a first. Like, we could just go and enjoy a stream. Like, you could go and enjoy it. If you watch Gamer Muscle, he's one of my favorite streamers. Like, sometimes he'll just sit there with a cup of tea and just have a natter, and then sometimes halfway through a stream he'll stop driving and start flying because it's about the entertainment. So I saw that comment and thought, like, there was a part of me that was like almost resigned to the fact of like, it's gonna happen. Like, it's sad. I wish it didn't, but anyway, we'll move on to a happier topic. This one's good. This one's a great question, right? Why do you believe people get into sim racing? Because they love racing or because they love gaming?
Oh, interesting.
Deep.
I think it's kind of both, honestly. I think you get the people who've come into it because they want to get as close as they can to actual racing. And then you get the people who have played the games. They play the games and they kind of get into it and they're like, wow, now I can actually, this is way more realistic. It actually kind of feels like I'm really driving rather than just using a controller and driving around a random track that's not real, And it's kind of nice having both communities come in and meet in the middle somewhere, So I think it's a bit of both, I think.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know a lot of streamers at Christmas. And when I say streamers, I mean kind of like iRacing AC streamers who are kind of, I was going to say sweaty, but that's unfair. Not sweaty. They're just very good. I'm just jealous. Okay. But at Christmas, they'll do like a Wreckfest stream. And that's kind of their like, okay, guys, office Christmas party. You can wear your funny jumpers. We're going to play some games. We're going to do a quiz. And their version of that is to then play Wreckfest rather than iRacing, but they're always the most fun streams. They're usually have the highest number of viewers, and you get lots of kind of people from within the community all chit-chatting together, and it's always like a real nice feeling. So yeah, it would be interesting to see more sim racers jumping between the various different options, because I guess sim racing is unique in the fact that you can be a sim racing streamer but actually play a few games. You know, you don't have to pigeonhole yourself into one game, whereas in the rest of the streaming world, most people will focus on a game, whether it's like a fantasy game or a first-person shooter or whatever. They'll become, I'm a COD streamer or I'm a CS streamer. And the CS streamer is probably less likely to jump between CS and COD, right? Whereas in sim racing, it's all sim racing. And if people like racing, then it doesn't really matter what the title is.
Exactly. I mean, I actually took part in that Wreckfest stream.
Nice.
And it was so fun. It was amazing. It was so nice getting these. A lot of them are like very serious streamers. They're really, really good at. They're really good at racing, you know. And you kind of watch them as a streamer. You're like, wow, these guys are really serious and they're amazing. And then you see them, like, you see that other side of them when they're just like plotting and scheming against the other teams, and you're just kind of like destroying each other. And it was so much fun. It was amazing. So yeah.
Yeah, it is one of the highlights of my Christmas period. Final question. George Morgan, he's been watching some of your videos recently. He enjoyed the video of your home sim racing setup on the Nordschleife, he was telling me this morning. And he has asked, I mean, it's a classic question, but it's a great question. And I'm interested to hear what you're going to say based on our discussion so far. What is your favorite track car combination ever?
My favorite track car combination.
He right? He was like, you have to choose the track first and then choose the car for it. I'm like, okay.
Nürburgring. 100%.
Okay,
easy.
So as in the Nürburgring rather than the Nordschleife?
Nords. I would say Nords.
Okay, right. Yeah.
100%. That's like the first thing that pops out to me. And is it cringy if I say a Mark 1 MX-5?
No, it's not. Why would it be cringy?
I don't know, because like it's not. It was just so fun to learn in, and I have so many good memories of learning. Like that's where I learned to sim race, you know, like on the Nords in a Mark 1 MX-5, and it was just so much fun. And granted, there are so many faster cars, and there are so many more crazy cars out there, but I have a Mark 1 MX-5, and it was just like surreal to think this is what it would kind of be like if I drove around Nords, you know, like. And then I got in my car in real life and was like, no, don't do it. Calm down. You can't drive like that in real life.
Yeah, the Mark 1 MX-5 is an absolutely stunning car. I like if I had. So I've got my eye on a couple at the moment on Auto Trader, but then I think in the last 10 years I've always got a couple favorited in Auto Trader. But like I'm looking at one at the moment that's like a British Racing Green, pop-up lights, tan leather, just one day. But I totally lost my train of thought because I've got excited with the concept of a Mark 1 MX-5.
Understandable. I get it, you know.
It's fine. I'm only human.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm sure it wasn't important. So, Annie, thank you so much for joining us on the show. That was a really strong ending to this podcast. Me totally forgetting what I was about to say. No doubt, everyone listening to this on Spotify is going to want to know where to follow you and your vlogs and your Twitch stream. So where can they find you?
On Twitch and YouTube and Instagram and Twitter under Annie_Avery. So yeah, I'm live every weekday on Twitch at 7:30 UK time.
That was beautifully done. Annie, thank you so much for your time. Really, really appreciate it. And we'll chat soon.
Thank you so much for having me. See you later.